what I want to get back to really nicely, because like both you and Blesker are mentioning like leadership, and I know that both of you guys have good leadership qualities, especially when it comes to sports. It's basically like what are the most important like leadership qualities that you think would help you like succeed in sports, right? Or have you used so far that has led you to success in like your pursuits in on the field and off the field? So whoever wants to take that first, go ahead. Yeah.
For me, it's a mix. So I was just talking to someone else today about like she's describing ideas and things that she wants to bring forward, but just didn't quite know whether to or to step on anyone's toes. And I'm like, just go for it. There's nothing that is stopping you from trying to execute something that you think it'll benefit the greater good, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and you should always go for it. So it's more so the how that becomes difficult. So never let that stop you, but instead like investigate the ways in which the how can be easy. So bring in the right people, ask them if they can support you in anything that you're doing. That's one thing. Two is, okay, figure out your next steps, because that's always a big question. Like, where do you go next? So once you have kind of your resources and supports, you'll probably figure out where to go from there, just because they'll kind of paint you in the right direction as to which way to go. And then the third thing I would say is be vocal, be loud. I'm a big mouth and I have no shame being that person. Okay. But I also do know when I should listen. But at the same time, I do know when I want to get something done, I'm going to get it done. Especially if I think it's something that will benefit someone else. Although, for example, with women's football, I've been ghosted many times asking for programs to be recognized by the athletic departments. I've just been told that, hey, this isn't in my hands. I don't have any decisions on this. When, if you really cared, you probably could find the ways to do it, especially when there's people in positions of leadership a lot higher than myself. So it's all a matter of, you've got to be strategic. You got to know how to navigate what you're working with. And you've got to use the resources and the people that have your back. So I'm starting to find the right people now to really kind of move things forward. And honestly, a lot of my allies come from my community, come from like where I identify with, and supporting. A lot of the support comes from there.
It's really well summed up when it comes to your leadership in your organization. So now, Bleska, I'm gonna hit you with give me your leadership qualities that you find important on the field. How are you able to succeed and bring people up to a certain level?
I found that I took a lot of like pieces from like veteran players from when I was younger. So like just seeing how they went about like daily practices and like, you know, their routines. I try to like take that and emulate it into myself. And you know, just because they were doing it that way doesn't mean I did it completely their way. You know, but take pieces of the people that you admire and then you build your own self and like a transformer or whatever, you know, like you're just putting the pieces together. So one thing I really found is to be vocal. So vocal, because communication is like, it might seem awkward at first, but just talking and talking and talking always builds positivity, because you get ideas out and just build something from that. Secondly, I'd say hard work, like, you know, like it's the same thing, putting work on the gym and the film. Like you got to do your research too. Like the internet, even though your road seems like it might be a road that you're taking on your own, but there are like paths that have already been taken that you can take and, you know, put the tiles on, or, you know, the stepping stones that you're doing as you're leapfrogging across the river or whatever. But that's just another one. And thirdly, listening. Yeah, listening is a great one, because, you know, in football you got coaches and they help you out a lot. You know, they have their, you know, like even if it's not coaches, like other teammates, even though they might not be, you know, at the same level as you, or they might be a greater level, you can always take something from someone else's perspective, because that's something that you might have not seen, because it might be, you know, comes easy to you. Those are my three.
Well, okay, I want to add something. Like, I guess with the women's football aspect, I felt the one thing that was okay. So I have mixed emotions about following other people's paths, having your own path, okay? So like with women's football, it's tough because there was kind of a path already created in terms of the teams that existed and them really leading their own programs, right? However, there was a lot of reinventing the wheel, creating a path that came with just like bringing it all together, honing it all in, getting all the teams coordinated, and then moving forward. So a lot of time, yes, following other people's paths are great, but it's good to have your own vision, you know? Because if you don't have that, where are you going to go? Like, how are you supposed to be on someone else's path if you didn't have their vision? You know what I mean? So it's good to bring in other visions. I 100% agree with your point about hearing other people's perspectives. That's key. But then also having your vision of yourself will allow you to kind of take that next step, or else like how else do you bring other people to the conversation? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I think it goes both ways, right? And there's so many different, like, like at the end of the day, people are interesting in the way that, like, some people will be more open to taking the perspective of someone that, like, brings up, like, especially in a team, right? Like, if you're listening to one of your, like, obviously not one of the star players, right? So like someone at the end of the bench, like, obviously it's good to hear everyone's opinion, but sometimes some people are not gonna take into consideration how they're viewing things, right? But you could even see it in, like, professional sports. And I think one example was, like, the backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think his name is like Dobson or something, and he's never gonna really play any any meaningful downs. But from what I watched of the Steelers games not too long ago, Big Ben, he really appreciates him just being on the sideline. And I think he's in his second or third year, right? And, like, this guy's not playing on the field, but he's already got the respect of this future Hall of Famer, right? So yeah, like, just learning
And
from people around you is important. And obviously, yeah, you gotta blaze your own path. But I think, like Bluska said, like, if it's good to just hear what people are saying most of the time, and, like, just at the end of the day, just take what is meaningful from what, like, or just take what's meaningful from those around you, right? And
Yeah, I think you were really touching on a note of mentorship, though. Like
also,
that's
yeah,
kind of
those are also, I want to add, those are the guys that usually become the head coaches in the future, right? The guys
yeah.
at the end of the bench. Like, how many like star players do you know that became the best head coaches or whatever, right? Like a lot of them are are the guys that that were in the locker room more, that were studying. It takes, because that different perspectives are important. But at the same time, you gotta have your own flame, and I absolutely agree. You gotta have your own flame, your own spark, and it's like a video game. You're your own hero. You gotta
there
figure
you
out where
go.
you're going, take what you can, and then just. But you also gotta have that innate drive to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like my upbringing was kind of started with just being very independent. It's always been me and my mom. So like I had to rely on myself, rely on her as a support system. But it felt like it was really like your own hero, your own hero of the story. So like sometimes you realize that you can't do it all on your own, but a lot of it, like you got to have that drive just to make sure that you get what you need and you give everyone else kind of the same benefits. Because like I see that my experiences are super fortunate, and in order for everyone else to have it, they need to be able to. You need to kind of pave that way. You need to start the path. I think that's super important rather than sometimes following a path. And then what I see in the future is like my future daughter being able to play flag football, for example, and getting
Future
out there
daughter.
because just because I paved the way to like give them a chance to play in university. So that's just like the end goal, right? Like it's not always about kind of what I wanted. Obviously I wanted to stage to play flag football competitively and be in a spot where I'm on a team because I'm considered one of the best. I also want that for the future gen.
Yeah, no, Olivia, those are some really good thoughts. Same with you, Bluska. And I think it's about time, Bluska, right?